and welcome to the Doofcast, a film and TV podcast from Doof Media. My name is Scott Daly, and joining me, as always, he's a poet, and he doesn't even know it. It's Matt Freeman. How's it going today, Matt?
Anybody want a peanut?
Wait.
That's a rhyme,
No.
right? No? Oh. Shoot.
You're supposed to do like a funny joke about this movie and how you're God, and you just...
Oh, okay.
Instead, you quoted The Princess Bride for some reason.
You know, I'm going to be honest. This movie is baffling, and it made it hard for me to come up with a clever little... Well, okay, so first of all, nobody's seen this movie. So if I made an in-joke reference to the movie, nobody would have gotten it. So, you know.
Well, but everyone that clicks on this this podcast is going to have watched the movie first, right?
No.
What? Why not?
Nobody watched this movie.
Well, they should have, Matt. They should have.
And that's what we're here to talk about.
Why. Yeah, I think so. We're back. We took was it 2 or 3 weeks off? I don't even remember anymore.
I don't remember
I think it was
either.
just 2. It's been a wild June for us here at Doof Media. We've been doing we had our live show for Kingslingers a couple weeks ago, and we were just so wrapped up in that stuff that we had to take a few weeks off. But we're back now, and we're picking up where we left off, Matt. We were 6 episodes into our 8-episode series on Darren Aronofsky, and we're here to do number 7 this week as we continue with Aronofsky's 2017 picture, Mother. I'm going to do it every time. I just want you to know I'm going to do it every time.
I'm sure that will not get old at all.
No. So we're going to talk about Mother, and then I thought we could wrap things up, Matt, by talking about a little summer TV, summer lovin'. There's a lot of television happening right now. I'm watching some of it. You are watching some of it, and I think we have some things to say about some of it.
All right, sounds good.
All right, Matt, let's get into it. Let's talk all about Darren Aronofsky's Mother.
We spend all our time here. I want to make a paradise.
She redid all of it, every last detail. And she breathed life back into every room.
Are you happy?
I love you. Please, come in. Hello.
Hello. He's a stranger. We're just gonna let him sleep in our house. Hello.
Hello.
Did you know he had a wife?
Matt, what is this movie all about?
A couple's relationship is tested when uninvited guests arrive at their home, disrupting their tranquil existence.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
Uh-huh.
This movie is written and directed by Darren Aronofsky. It stars Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem. Matt, I have to know. This is honestly the one I've been looking forward to since we started this whole thing, by far. I got to know what you thought of Mother. What do you think of this movie, Matt?
So I only watched it for the first time today.
Yeah.
And so I have not really had time to digest and process it, which I actually, sometimes I feel like, I wish we could have waited for me to have time to think about the movie so I could come up with some thoughts, you know. But this is one of those cases where it might be entertaining to hear me like in the wake of just having watched the film, still picking up the pieces, still picking myself up off the ground, because it's such an interesting movie on a thematic and metaphorical level. It's such an intense experience on an actual sitting in the chair watching the movie level. Yeah. It takes those things that we've identified about Aronofsky as a filmmaker and just cranks that knob all the way up. And like, I can see why it's not a beloved movie, right? But especially on the tail end of this Aronofsky project, I'm just like, I feel prepared. I feel ready to let to let it wash over me and now to discuss it. It's like, if you're asking if I enjoyed it, I don't even know the answer to that.
I don't think it's impossible to enjoy this movie.
Yeah, right. It's actually painful, but like in a different way than like The Wrestler or something, which is also painful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I there's so many directions we could go with this. But since you've presumably had more time to digest, what are your feelings about Mother?
I love this fucking movie, man. I love it so much. I think this is a hard movie to watch, obviously, for reasons we'll get into, and reasons if you are listening at home and have seen this movie, you know. But this is what I want Aronofsky to be doing. Like, this is what I meant when I was really talking about The Wrestler, and how that's a good movie. That's just not the type of stuff I want him to be doing. I want him to go full psycho and make things like this, which are just, I'm going to pummel your senses for the next 2 hours, and I'm going to ramp up anxiety and tension to a level that drives you insane. In fact, like, this is, I think I said this before, but I'll repeat it again. This is the only film I've watched with my wife that she almost got up and left the theater. And it wasn't because she hated the movie per se. It was just because the audio and visual presentation was pummeling her senses so much that she couldn't take it anymore, that she was just losing it. And she wanted to get it. She stayed, but I could tell she was very close to just needing to get up and walk out of the theater. This movie does not hold back. It does. I think you're absolutely right that it does everything we've been talking about Aronofsky, how he does things visually, the way he wants to push you into this zone of uncomfort, discomfort. And it does so very, very effectively. And it also is doing a lot of really interesting allegorical things here. We're going to talk about the Bible stuff, but I think if it was just that, if it was just, hey, I sneakily made a movie about the story of creation and existence in the Christian Bible, I think that would be one thing. I do think this movie is going beyond that in ways that I find really interesting, and I want to kind of get your read on here.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love it. I like the part that was so joyous for me for watching it the first time was doing what everyone else does when I'm just watching this movie. I have no idea what the fuck's going on, and then there's a moment that happens with everyone, and I think with everyone the moment as is at a slightly different place in the movie, that you click into what it's doing, that you realize what the allegory is, and then you're like, oh. And I think that's such a fun moment, like that on in and of itself is fun enough that I just got, like, excites me about the movie. I think for me it was not too far after Cain kills Abel. I don't know if you noticed this, when Cain kills Abel and then Javier Bardem like grabs Cain and like pushes him into, I think it's the mantle of the fireplace. He smashes his head into something, and Cain gets a mark on his forehead, which is the mark of Cain. Like, this is not something I noticed the first time I watched it, but it was right around this part where I think I started to click into, oh, I see, that's the Adam and Eve, and and that's the flood. Like, I get it now. And I think that's such a fun moment. And once you get it, once you are vibing with what the movie is doing, I think watching as things escalate and roll out becomes a different experience.
Yes, I think you're right. It's interesting because I think I took way longer than you to click over to the fact that it was like explicitly a religious, whatever word you just used.
Allegory.
It's an allegory. It's very sort of one-to-one. It's very straightforward in that way. And because of that, I think mostly I was watching it as like, okay, is this basically supposed to be about the experience of motherhood as like a sort of poem? Because and the thing is, having watched the movie mostly with that pair of glasses on, I kind of like that reading. And I'm not saying it's the correct reading, because that's the thing about readings, is you can say whatever you want. But like I enjoyed watching it as like, this isn't like a literal story about a thing that happened. This is a story about what a person feels. This is a story about the emotions attendant to motherhood. And it's like, basically, I think the reading still works really well, because it's like you're taken for granted. You work tirelessly because you love, but the love is never appreciated. Even after all of your love is squandered, you still just keep loving, and you can't help yourself. And I mean, you could go into kind of each part of the movie and talk about what specifically that says about things. There's certain elements like, why are these weird people showing up in the house, where I was honestly like, what is this? And then of course it makes way more sense to just be like, it's Adam and Eve. And the actual allegorical interpretation is like, basically she's like the world or nature, I think
she's Mother Nature. Yeah.
Mother Nature, Mother Nature. And and he's God, and it's like she wants things to just be nice and build the house, which is a metaphor for the world.
Yep.
And he is bored like that. He can't. He's stultified, and it's only when he invites these chaotic, horrible people into his house that he actually becomes inspired. And but it's like and he's super selfish.
Yeah. I mean, and that is, I think, where what it gets to, what I actually think this movie ends up actually doing. And I think you're right with the motherhood read, certainly. But this is not a movie about how bad people are. I mean, like, it's true that in the movie, people, you, me, us, the world, humanity is not good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that is so backgrounded in that it's just happening and taken as a given, right? Like, it's not the driving force of the conflict of the film. The driving force of the conflict of the film is Javier Bardem, is the creator, the poet, him, God, and his conflict with Mother Nature.
Yeah. Right.
And I think that to me opens up what I think this movie ends up being, because this is a story that talks. It is not kind to God. It is not kind to the destructive act of creation. And this is where it becomes really fascinating to me, because I think this is Aronofsky talking about what it is like to be with someone who creates, to be with a creator, to be with a director, a writer, painter, whatever, someone that creates, someone that does that does that difficult, isolating, lonely, powerful and important task of bringing things into the world, and using the biblical creation story as a further metaphor, a metaphor within a metaphor, if you will, to talk about what it's like to be a person that's in love with someone whose life is completely committed to creation, and how that is destructive, and how they basically consume you. They consume you, and they use you, and they take your work and your warmth and your love, and they take all that. And what do they give that back to you? No, they put it in their thing. They put it in their creation. They put it in everyone else, and how much they need it. They need those people. I get those people out of my house. No, I don't want them to go. I need them. I need those people. I need that adoration. I need that worship, and it will destroy you, and I will not stop. That is the overarching message at the end of the thing, right? Like, it fails. She dies. Okay, go again. Let's do it again. I'm going to keep doing it. I will never stop doing this. That is pretty powerful. And it becomes the most ironic thing in the world, Matt, because Jennifer Lawrence, after acting in this movie, started dating Darren Aronofsky.
It's great. It's great. It's perfect.
What? Why would... Yeah. He's like, look, here's me. I'm this horrible monster that's going to destroy you for my creation. You want to get a drink sometimes?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, here's how this ends: is you're going to blow yourself up, and then I'll replace you with another similar looking person. And I'll manage to feel sad about it, as if this was a thing done to me outside of my control. Yeah. It's perfect. Yeah. I like, so just one thing that I just kept noticing while watching the movie is that Javier Bardem is probably one of my favorite actors now. And so it's funny because it's not like I didn't always think he was great, but I guess I hadn't seen him in all that many things. And then it's like, and this is a fairly old movie, obviously, but it's like, okay, we just saw Dune 2 recently, and then this hits me, which I hadn't seen before. And those are just two performances that both like wow me, and also they're incredibly different performances, like incredibly different characters. And I just loved it. I just loved everything about, you know, his character, his performance. Like you said, there's just as much about like the nature of being an artist and a creator as there is about the
Hmm.
nature of being a mother and a giver and a caretaker.
Yeah.
It's it's all there. It's all there in the performances.
That, I mean, that is, I think what elevates this is it's a fun allegory. It's a fun way of telling the story. It's a fun way of, let's take the biblical creation story and then just twist it and play with it, is just a fun idea. But the way he shoots this movie and the way it becomes all about the characters, Jennifer Lawrence is in every single frame of this movie. Two exceptions, the opening and the closing, when it's another woman that looks exactly like Jennifer Lawrence.
Mhm.
But with the exception of those, she is in every single frame. The camera is right up in her face the entire time. And I think this is my favorite of her performances. And I think she's a very good actress. And she's carrying this movie. She has to carry this movie. And I think this does everything that she does well. All in one package. I think she's a revelation in this movie.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never like she's never jumped out to me as like, oh, she's amazing. She was the best part about that movie, right? Like she's always been fine, but
Hmm.
she the subtlety, I mean, sometimes we say an actor carries a movie, but this is like this movie either fails or succeeds on her ability to like
Yeah.
be
Hmm.
compelling and convey slight shadings of emotion with even just like a passive reaction to something,
Yeah.
or just like, you know, expressing her irritation in a clear but subtle way.
Yeah.
um
Like the
yeah.
way sometimes just her like natural kind of voice breaking of her, she's got a little bit of a gruffer voice, and the way it
Mhm.
cracks or breaks on certain lines. That's the type of thing is like, I don't know if you're doing this intentional or not, or if it's just like your affect, but it just enhances the moments of the film that are just her completely overwhelmed and yeah, uncertain. But she's also has to carry the parts where she kind of takes control and becomes powerful, right? She has to handle those moments as well. And I think she's able to just run the gamut with this performance. I really do.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think one thing I was thinking about while watching, especially the sort of escalation where things just linearly become more and more intense for like 45 minutes. Um, I was like, sort of stepping back from myself and being like, it's really hard to do this without becoming like boring. Like,
Yeah.
because if you just
Hmm.
keep pressing the things get worse button, and at a certain point, it becomes clear, regardless of your awareness of the fact that we're in an allegory, it becomes clear that this is nonsense, right?
Yeah.
Is like people just like appear and disappear randomly, and now there's an army invading, and now there's cultists, and like characters behave totally irrationally, and you're just like, oh, okay, we've lost all rooting in reality. Like it's not even a like in a straightforward allegory, it would be like the characters would sort of behave consistently within the logic of the allegory, but very often you have like Kristen Wiig just like, you know, is his publisher, and then now she's like um uh, a rebel commando leader 5 seconds later, and you're just, and it's fine. You're like, I mean, it's fine to the extent that you're just willing to accept that we're now in a realm where logic doesn't
Yeah.
apply anymore. But the thing is, it doesn't become boring. It keeps its intensity. I think a lot of that rides
Yeah.
on her performance, actually.
I agree. And I also think like the kind of the patience of the film to hold on to the realism for as long as it does, that like, we kind of see this house and for a long time in the movie, it follows the rules of the universe as we know it. And so
Right.
it doesn't go into the absurd until everything has started ramping up pretty significantly. Like it's really, I mean, even through like the Great Flood, which in this movie is the unsecured sink being knocked down, and flooding the room, and everyone clears out. Even through that part, you could argue that's like, oh no, we're just playing this completely straight and mundane, and we're just going to use these images to recreate in a way the biblical story, but there's nothing like magical or otherworldly about this outside of that. Um, and it holds on to that. That's a good hour into the film, I think. And then it's really not until the Messiah comes, or the Messiah begins to come, until he writes the New Testament, essentially, that things start to escalate into the absurdity and the casting off all semblance of realism, that this house stops functioning effectively as an actual house and is just, now this is just a metaphor for the world, clearly, and like we're swinging back and forth and suddenly there's a cage there, and
Yeah.
all that stuff is thrown out the window. But I appreciate its patience to hold on to that for as long as possible, because I feel like what Aronofsky is doing here is very cleverly like holding back until he thinks you've gotten what he's doing, and then it's like, oh, once you go, oh, the Bible, then I can really turn the knobs up. And he doesn't want to do that until he feels comfortable that the majority of the people watching the film have gotten that particular thing.
Yeah, that's true. And the more ridiculous it gets, the more you're likely to start questioning things and being like, what the hell? And then you'll, I do suspect there's some number of people who don't figure it out. And I can't even really blame them, because, you know, you and I guess you said you caught on to it pretty quickly, but like, I didn't catch on all that quickly, and I'm coming off of having just watched all of his movies in a row, and having in my mind that he loves to do these stories about religion. The last one we talked about was Noah, right? So
yeah, I actually inadvertently, like in talking about how much he loves religion, I inadvertently said mother as I was going through that, and I was like mentally chastised myself, like, fuck, I'm gonna point him towards this allegory, and he's gonna get it earlier. So I'm glad that didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't mess anything up for me. I think it just gives me a sense that maybe there are people who just walked out of the movie like, I have no idea what the hell that was about.
I think that's true. I will say, like, the end of the film, she says, "Who are you?" And he says, "I am I."
Yeah.
I don't, like, at that point, I feel like everyone should be like, "Oh, he's God." Like, I don't know how else.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to take that.
Yeah, but I mean, yes, you're correct, but I think you and I have a lot of latent Catholicism running in our veins. So
fair. I mean, that's why I feel like I feel like I see two brothers and one of them kill each other. I'm like mentally programmed to be like, Cain and Abel.
Right.
So no, I think you're right.
Strikes him in the head, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I guess I'm just saying I wouldn't blame people for not getting it. There's even,
no, I mean, I think one of the top IMDb reviews is, what the fuck did I just watch? So yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think the metaphor becomes very, very obvious. I do think the metaphor within the metaphor doesn't become as obvious, and that's why I like it. But I totally agree that there's people that walk out of this movie that just said, I have no fucking idea what any of that was at all.
There's one moment in there, just speaking of moments when you probably should get it, but maybe you don't, man, I forget what exactly precedes this, but you know, he says something, and then she says in just a totally normal, neutral voice, "All right, well, I'll go start getting the apocalypse ready."
Yeah.
And you're like, excuse me? Like, did you mean dinner? Or like, and he doesn't react at all. And which I'm kind of glad that I remember that in this moment, because I was just thinking about the ending of the movie and how it's like, this is the part that for me is like the least of a clean fit, because it's like, but then I take that back, because it becomes clear when it's like, well, this isn't just coming up to the present day. This is the whole story, as it were. This is, we end with the apocalypse. We end with Mother Earth, you know, essentially deciding that we have broken her heart. We have injured her house, which is a metaphor for the world, and her spirit, which is like, you know, by killing her son, by killing everything she cares about, and she blows up the whole earth and kills everyone, which is the apocalypse, the end of the world. And then God is like, crap, dude. All right, start over, I guess.
Let's go again.
Yeah.
I love what to go back to the creation whole thing, what she says to him at the very end, what hurts me the most is that I wasn't enough. And his response is, it's not your fault. Nothing is ever enough. I couldn't create if it was, and I have to. That's what I do. That's what I am. And now I must try it all again.
Yeah.
And she says, no, let me go. And he's like, no, I just need one last thing. Your fucking heart. That's all I have left to take and destroy and use to mold into something else. I mean, God damn. Not kind to God or himself or just any creative, certainly.
Yeah, there's one element that I think kind of turns surprisingly and poignantly, but plays with the Christian, the religious metaphor a little bit interestingly, which is, okay, so at the end of the movie, he pulls out the nodule from her chest, which I at least did give myself credit that I like. As soon as he started reaching into her chest, I was like, oh, it's going to be the glass thing.
Yeah.
And then you realize, like, oh, the glass thing that was in the house at the beginning, from the beginning of the movie, from his previous, life, was the heart of his, previous universe, basically.
Yeah.
And so that hit me pretty hard, actually, in the moment, realizing that. But then the interesting thing they do, I'm kind of putting this together in real time, is like Adam and Eve go where they're not supposed to go. They go to the forbidden part of the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
And they break the thing, which must mean, eating from the tree of knowledge or the Garden of Good and Evil or whatever. And God is really mad and he kicks them out, but then they come back later. And I thought that was interesting because I'm like, what does the glass heart have to do with the apple? And like, there's no Satan here. And it's like, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be exactly 1-to-1, but I was kind of in this moment, actually, I'm kind of puzzling over like, is that what we're saying is the nature of the sin that Adam and Eve created in this allegory? See, that's the thing. I don't know how hard like to pick at things, because it's like, yeah.
I mean, I think it's a stretch sometimes. Like, I think he takes these things and he's trying to map them together, and he stretches the biblical story to work in what we're doing here. And I think that's one example of it, is that it is this beautifully cyclical thing that he takes her heart and makes this beautiful crystal thing, which becomes the focal point and the birth of the universe, essentially, again, right? He puts that in its place in his study, which like brings the house back and resets the cycle, and everything starts again. It's all connected around this thing. And then, he also substitutes that for the forbidden fruit, for them being so fascinated by this idea, by this thing, that they had to touch it and break it. I mean, like you kind of maybe take the concept of eating the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge and like make it a little bit more broad and less specific, and you could be like, oh, just like the act of like this thing, this heart is like the center of the world and a symbol for like the act of creation in a lot of ways, and they broke it. They were obsessed with it, they did not listen, and they broke it. So you can twist it. I really like it. I mean, I like that, it becomes clear that the study is the Garden of Eden, and the first thing he does after it's broken is he walls it off and says, no one's coming in here anymore. And when is the first time we go back in there? When the Messiah is about to be born. So that's kind of reopening our path to eternal glory there. Which is what Jesus did. So it all works. But I think sometimes it has to be stretched a little bit there.
Yeah. So speaking of the Messiah, the most, straightforwardly heretical and also like horribly upsetting part of the movie is there's a baby. It's a cute baby. It may be a CGI baby, but if so, it's a very cute CGI baby. And
it's actually animatronic. It's a real baby and then several different animatronic babies.
Well, it was a very cute series of babies and an animatronic baby. And then it is horribly killed on screen in a way that's very upsetting to any human. Something that we don't really do in movies is kill babies on screen ever. And then we don't just like, oh, the baby's dead. The people are eating the baby, and there's like a horribly smushed and brutalized baby torso that's on the thing. on the altar, I suppose, is what it is. And it's obviously communion. Okay, like
Yeah, yeah,
we all got that. But I think what was so upsetting to me about it was like just thinking about the idea of communion in context of like literalizing the metaphor of like you're
yeah.
eating the son of God, and
Well,
it's
we are raised Catholic, Matt.
yeah,
We believe in transubstantiation, right?
yeah. So that was upsetting for all of those reasons.
Yeah. That is absolutely the most disturbing sequence of the film. I had not seen this movie since I had children, so seeing the baby die, like, I say this a lot, and what I don't mean is that like you can't be horribly disturbed by baby deaths if you're not a parent. Obviously, that's not what I mean. I do mean there's something much more personal, immediate, and horrifying of it when you just easily transpose your child's face onto the face of the baby that just got its neck snapped and is now being eaten by crazed zealots.
Uh-huh.
um it was rough. It was really rough, and the movie does not hold back. It shows it all, and like this is the type of thing that makes me feel for the studio a little bit. Like, yes, Matt, I am sympathizing with the billionaire owners of giant corporations
Uh-huh.
in that Aronofsky delivers this movie, and they're just like, what the fuck, man? Like, what am I going to do with this? And like, actually, so this is, I'm kind of going off on a tangent. We can circle back to your point later, but this movie got an F cinema score. We've talked about cinema score before. That's the thing that they do, like the post movie like survey that they do. You'll walk out of a movie and there's a person standing there and asking you how you feel about it, and they take all your ratings and they add it up into an overall number. F is very, very bad. It does not happen very often, and this movie got an F. And I think part of the reason this movie got an F is because if you go look at the trailer of this film, they build this movie as a horror movie. It's a horror movie about two people living in a house, and then strange people start showing up and the horrifying experience of that. And it's not that that's not true, but that's definitely not what this movie is. And the thing that pisses off audiences more than anything is feeling like they've been misled. And I do think if you watch the trailer, it does bill it as something very much not what this film ends up being.
Yeah. In fact, for all that I was kind of maybe horrified by some moments, like the baby dying, it wasn't scary, right?
Yeah,
It was
it's not a
almost
scary movie. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's not a scary movie at all. I mean, that's kind of one of the interesting things about Aronofsky, right? Is we've remarked, I think, several times now that he makes psychological horror films that are not scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, interestingly, maybe I've even made this exact comment before, but like even Requiem for a Dream is a psychological horror film, even though I don't know that many people would describe it that way. It's horrifying. It's upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
It's not scary, but it's a different kind of horror, and that's like that's his whole thing. It's a very unique thing that he does. That's why it's kind of amazing that he's so successful, because he's like, my films are all designed to make you feel bad in a way that is not popular to feel
Yeah.
bad, because we like to feel scared. We like to feel certain kinds of wistfully sad, and those are the two bad emotions that we like to go to movies to feel. We don't like to feel devastated and anxious and like viscerally like disgusted. And he's just sitting there at the keyboard, just pushing all those buttons, all the buttons that we typically don't enjoy having pushed, right? That's it.
Yeah.
And he does it so skillfully. I just love it.
Yeah. I mean, this movie is remarkably effective at doing all those things, at making you uncomfortable, at making you sad, at making you angry, at making you confused. All the emotions that people don't like feeling. You couple that with the fact that you thought you were coming in for a scary movie, and you leave the theater pretty fucking pissed off. And that is exactly what happened. This movie did not do very well at all. I think it made $44 million on the $30 million budget, which isn't like terrible. I like, again, I feel for the marketing team on this film for like, how are we gonna fucking market this thing? Like, how do we do that? How do you market in a way that doesn't spoil what the allegory is? Because that's gonna piss off the Christians, right?
Yeah.
If we tell them that going in, that they're gonna get mad and not come. I do feel for everyone involved in this movie. But like, the cool thing about this is actually it getting an F cinema score is the best possible thing to happen to this film, because now it's like infamous in a fun way. And so basically what has happened with this movie is there is no in between. You love it or you hate it. That's
Uh-huh.
essentially where we're at with this movie. The people that like this movie, like me, really, really like it. And the people that do not like this movie just can't stand it.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you ask me right now, do I like this movie? I don't even know. It's certainly not true that I hold on. There's too many double negatives in that. I can stand it. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I hate this movie, I'm rejecting this movie. It's just like, I don't know who I would recommend this movie to.
Yeah, that's a tough question.
Like,
Yeah.
there's tons of people I would recommend Pi to, for example. And The Fountain. Maybe not Noah, right? But like, I think every one of his movies except Noah, I would recommend people watch. And then this one, I'm just like, man, you gotta be open minded, and it's a little bit of a it's a tough sit, as they say, in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm really glad we watched it. It's a little. I mean, it's really interesting to think about and ponder about. And I feel like this is one of those ones where, a week from now, I'll be like, I wish I had said this about it, because I'll have had more time to digest it. But yeah, I understand the reaction. I understand not liking the movie, honestly, but I think it's great.
Ultimately, I completely side with people that don't like the movie. I get it. I totally get it. I think, like, again, this is what I want this guy to be doing, is where I come back to it again, is like, have a vision. I think he said, like, he was just like looking at the state of the world and just woke up one day and the rough draft of this movie came out in 5 days. He just penned the entire screenplay in 5 days and he had to clean things up from there. But like, this just kind of fell out of him as this thing that was born from this passionate, concern for the world we live in and the things that are happening. And gosh, this was pre-pandemic. This is 2017. It's the before times. With whole lot of stuff has happened since then, but just to take that thing that he does, which is examine religion and explore religion and the ways in which people find strength in religion and the ways in which religion is ultimately destructive for some people, and to channel that idea and that imagery into this very in line with his like kind of overarching view on the world, like shout and cry about everything, I think is just remarkable. Because like, I wonder if he was conscious of the creation as like creation of art metaphor that I brought to you. Like, I wonder if that's something he was consciously realizing when he made the movie, or he's just making a movie about, the way we're destroying the planet and the way, and even the mother metaphor that you're talking about. Yeah. Like what it is like to be a creator of life. And we haven't talked about this much, but the difference between him, God, in the story as a creator of life, and Mother Nature as the creator of life, right? Like, technically, if we're going into the allegory here, he created Adam, right? And I don't know if you noticed this, but when Adam is coughing in the toilet, and God is helping Adam, you can see a wound on his side, right where a rib would have gone. The implication is that's when he took the rib from him, and then Eve shows up the next morning. So it's all pretty consistent in what they're doing here. It's just kind of cleverly hidden. Anyway, that kind of creation is just is framed so differently in the film, and even like the creation of when he creates art, when he writes the poems, like the this kind of creation versus the kind of creation that Mother Nature is doing, the kind of the hard work of it, the creating of the house, the maintaining of the house, and then the actual literal birth of a human being, Jesus in this case, I think is interesting, because it shows those differing ways of creating, those differing ways of bringing life into the world.
Yeah.
And one is respected and worshipped, and the other is tossed to the side and ignored and destroyed
Yeah.
ultimately.
Yeah. I appreciated that element of things because the house, the actual providing of material sustenance, food, light, shelter, the beauty, the beautification of the house. Everyone is like, oh, thanks, and then they just take it for granted immediately. And
This, like, I mean, one I think really clever thing that this movie does is play on this, I think, general broadly shared anxiety of like people are in your house and are not treating it well. It's like the kid that invites people over for a high school party and then too many people come and they're just like stressed out as people are breaking shit, and like that is, I think, a generally shared anxiety that a lot of people have. And this movie taps into that to tell this message and have the story. And yeah, they're just like immediately, I think all the we haven't talked about the actors outside the other two, or the main two, and I think they do like a really remarkable job of just like being obnoxious and terrible. Like Michelle Pfeiffer as Eve is like the perfect casting. It's just absolutely perfect.
Yeah, she's awful.
Yeah, she's really, yeah.
I was unable to figure out like why does she need to be so bad? And I mean,
She's Eve.
She's Eve, and I mean, it works in terms of making you feel really bad for our character who is just put upon and dumped on by everyone around her, even the people who, the Eve thing is really interesting to me because like it was this weird like, oh, Michelle Pfeiffer is sort of has this like, oh, I know everything. I'm going to give you all this unsolicited advice and talk about myself and then make you feel really bad about all of the sensitivities that you have. And it seems to be out of a desire to just like elevate herself, which I get. Yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense, right? It's like,
she
I love all
sucks
that.
and she doesn't listen. She's like, I think the movie does a really good job of of building a humanity that just will not listen to the will of God or Mother Nature, that just will not listen. And you're like, she just said don't go up there. And like when the people keep getting on the sink, it's like there's conversations happening, and like in the background you'll see them get off the sink when she yells at them, and then you'll see them get right back on it like 2 seconds later, and you just want to be like, get off the sink. Why aren't you listening? And like she even says that they won't listen. Get them out of here. And that's us. That's us.
Yeah. There's tons of stuff where I don't even necessarily know if it's even meant to connect to the metaphor at all, or if it's just like this is meant to make you feel really annoyed at everyone, like where tons of people keep coming over to the wake.
Yeah.
But like increasingly obviously like tangentially related to the actual purpose of the wake, and then like making out in her bedroom and just like everything escalating from there.
Yeah. Well, they treat this place like it's theirs, right? And which is perfect to the metaphor, right? One thing I noticed on this rewatch is every time she tells someone this is our home, they laugh at her. Like, this is my home. Their response is like laughter, as if that's an absurd thing to say. It's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. This is my home. I live here. All this is mine. I'm going to do with it what I want with it. And I don't care about you. I'm going to make out in this bedroom because it's here and I want to.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit on the sink because I want to.
Yeah. Yep. And then we all get blown up because we don't listen.
I'm gonna toss your wet clothes out of the running washing machine onto the floor to throw mine in because fuck you. I don't care about you. I mean, it is this perfect idea of creating humanity as the worst possible house guest of all time. And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just reading that Aronofsky himself was like, it's dream logic. Don't think too hard about it.
Yeah. I mean, he said that, but he has also pretty clearly in interviews been like, yeah, like every Bible metaphor is is supposed to
Right.
be clear,
Yeah.
and obvious.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. All right. So, what else did you want to say about this movie, Matt? Okay. One thing I did want to mention. I don't think I don't have a lot of memory of the score of this film, but the sound design I think is very specific. The way in which Aronofsky seems to have turned up the mix on the creaks of the house, the steps, like. Jennifer Lawrence, by the way, is barefoot throughout this entire movie. She never wears shoes, and I think that's intentional for building, who Mother Nature and her connection with the house. She's touching it the entire time. That's a clear through line of her connecting with it. That's we see her hug the wall multiple times, and this living being exists behind the house that is dying. But man, the creaks and the walking and the sounds, I just thought were so good. And like again, I watched this with headphones on, so maybe this is just the experience of watching this movie with headphones on. But I do remember having that experience when I was in the theater as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciated that as well. It's funny, I don't remember the music either. If you told me there was no music, I wouldn't be surprised to hear that, but I also wouldn't be surprised to hear there was. Just didn't register for me.
Yeah, which is interesting for Aronofsky, which is that has been like a huge part, right? I did read that Johan Johansson, who is a very, very famous composer that did a lot of scores for films I loved and I think has sadly passed away, originally did the score for this movie, and then he told Aronofsky, he's like, no, don't use mine. And Aronofsky's like, yeah, okay. So I don't know. That's just a weird thing, but apparently that's what happened here. So
weird. Yeah. I don't know what to make of that.
There definitely was music. I'm like pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you that like the house is the earth and she has a connection with the earth. I'm less clear on what the little like amorphous blob thing is that kind of sometimes she sees in her visions and sometimes like it was in the toilet and it squirted ink at her and then disappeared down the toilet. I was like,
I don't know what the toilet thing is. No, my only we have this like kind of metaphor for hell right in the basement and this passage to the basement. I think that's what's that supposed to be. It doesn't open until the Cain kills Abel is what activates hell, I guess. But yeah, there's some images in this I'm not clear on. I think the thing she feels in the wall is just like the heart of it's the world soul. It's the heart of the world. And she's feeling it. It's kind of slowly dying as the house is being abused and slowly dying and collapsing. But what the thing is in the toilet, I don't know. There's also the yellow liquid that she drinks several times throughout the movie. That has been a thing that I've never myself been able to parse what the fuck that's supposed to be. It's she like seems to be getting like attacks, and then she goes into her medicine cabinet and drinks some of this ambrosia looking stuff and then feels better. She tosses it after she gets pregnant, but I don't know. I have no idea what that is and how that ties into anything biblical or metaphorical. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. Nothing is occurring to me right now either.
so yeah,
well.
there's a little shagginess on the edges of this thing for sure.
Yeah, but that's okay. So again, I'm okay with it not being like a one-to-one transliteration of the Bible. I texted you while watching it before the Bible thing had actually fully occurred to me. I said this is an adaptation of The Yellow Wallpaper, which perhaps for those who aren't familiar, it's a very famous short story about a woman who is basically prescribed bed rest to deal with her, I suppose, mental illness. And we just sort of watch the woman's mental state deteriorate over the course of the story from a first person perspective, such that, it begins with her having, grounded thoughts, mundane irritations and frustrations, and going to just totally florid hallucinations about like a woman who is trapped behind the wallpaper of the room that she's trapped in. And then the woman trapped in the wallpaper is her. And it's a great short story. It's very affecting. And I was thinking about that during this movie, because it's like, well, that's the arc of this character, is it,
Yeah.
or like your feeling while watching the movie is you start out in what feels like a grounded world that could just be like, oh yeah, this is a couple that lives in a house in the country, and it turns into a literal nightmare that follows dream logic and makes no actual sense. And I if you just take it as an adaptation of the Yellow Wallpaper, which I'm sort of making that up, but it's like it's the most successful adaptation of the Yellow Wallpaper ever, because it feels just like that story feels.
I do think there's something there. There is several yellow motifs in this film, right? I mean, like the liquid we talked about already. She is painting one of the walls in her room, and she, puts one color on there, doesn't like it, ends up mixing a little bit more, and what is it? It's yellow, right? So I feel like Aronofsky's probably read the Yellow Wallpaper, and I feel like maybe this was his homage to it a little bit, that he is going to put this recurring motif of the color yellow in the story to kind of gesture towards that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the thing she drinks is yellow, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's there. I think it's there. I don't know. It's cool.
Yeah,
I love this movie. I love that you can I struggle sometimes with movies that go so avant-garde that they just kind of abandon the entire concept of plot sometimes, right? Like those can bore me when it gets just too artsy. It can lose me. I think this straddles that line just enough. And I think what it comes down to ultimately is Jennifer Lawrence's performance and commitment to her as a character kind of pulls you through it. As you said, it doesn't ever get boring. It doesn't ever get, even when it does get overwhelming, you're so kind of cued into her and her experience and her going through it, that I think it ends up being riveting, even if the movie is technically by design going off the rails.
Yeah, that's kind of my favorite thing about the movie, is it's willing to just, kind of like you've said several times in this conversation, it's Aronofsky doing what he's best at, which is very different from what you go to a normal movie to watch. And I would rather him make this than make a normal movie. Yeah,
me too. And every time I would rather 10 bad versions of this movie than one just normal movie that's okay.
Yeah.
Keep doing this, Aronofsky. I hope that's what The Whale is. That's our last movie. It's one that neither of us have seen. Don't know what it is. I know the concept of it, and I'm a little worried it's just going to be normal Oscar baity movie and not something weird as shit and wonderful. And I hope it is. We'll find out.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, so that'll be next week. We'll be wrapping up this whole series. We'll be watching The Whale, and then we'll be talking about our overall feelings about Aronofsky. Doof. Before we go, Matt, let's talk TV. So we've been away a little bit of time, and since that happened, there have been a lot of television shows that have come out, and they've all broken people's brains. So you want to talk about the Acoloyte a little bit here, Matt? Star Wars, the Acoloyte?
A little bit, not too much, hopefully. Yeah, I've watched the first 4 episodes. I didn't watch the latest one.
And I think for you, that is saying something, that you have made it through 4 episodes of this television show. You are, on some level, enjoying this, no?
Yeah, on some level. I think they were smart by making it a kind of a mystery, a kind of a murder mystery, that kind of a question at the center of the thing, where it hooks you pretty effectively, where you're like, oh, I want to find out what the answer is to the mystery. And it's got enough characters in it where you feel like, okay, I'm kind of invested in what's going on with these characters. I kind of want to figure out what's going to happen. It's not particularly smartly written. I just watched a little bit of Andor just to check whether I was crazy, and whether Andor and Andor is a million times better written than this. Especially at the level of character dialogue. Acoloyte has those moments. It's not quite as bad as in the Jedi Order, we blah 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 blah, but it's close. It's close to being that bad, where you have characters who just say things that no one would ever say. There's no real depth, but but you're kind of okay with that because it's like, well, this isn't a psychological thriller. This is just
Yeah.
a simple procedural murder mystery where the detectives happen to be Jedis. Sort
Mhm.
of. It kind of isn't. It kind of also isn't that. It starts out as that, and you kind of think that's what it's going to be, and then by episode 4, it's kind of not really that anymore. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm only 2 episodes into this thing, so I have not quite seen the full breadth of it that you have, but I agree. Like, the concept intrigued me. I enjoyed the first episode, and I could kind of already tell it was moving away from that even by episode 2, and like I didn't want it to. Um, but it's not that bad. I mean, I think the most interesting thing about the show is how many people just absolutely despise it. Like, the vitriol and the anger and the hatred over the show is astonishing to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's that good of a show, but it's whatever. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I was joking to you before we started recording that like the target audience of the Star Wars TV shows is people who hate Star Wars because it's the most reliable way to drum up engagement.
Yeah.
Is like the
Yeah.
people who are going to watch the show so they can complain about it and then like go watch the YouTube videos about how it's a travesty and how it ruined their childhood. And I'm not even saying I love the show and I think the show is brilliant. I just think I agree with you that it's the vitriol is actually out of proportion to how bad it is. Because like there's lots of bad shows. there's plenty of bad shows. You don't like just don't watch it, right? And it can be fun to rag on stuff, obviously. Like I'm not even if you enjoy ragging on stuff, I guess that's fine, but just like have some, proportionality about it.
Just calm down, everybody. Like, Star Wars hasn't been good for a long time. With the exception of like Andor.
Yeah.
So like we don't need to lose our mind. Like I haven't seen episode 3, but episode 3 is the one that I understand like caused the internet to absolutely go insane because I guess they quote unquote ruined Anakin's origin story.
I can't imagine caring about this.
Yeah, like this is the wildest thing to me, and this is like who the fuck cares about where Anakin came from?
Yeah,
I don't care.
Yeah,
it's a Jesus metaphor. It's like the least interesting Jesus metaphor ever. So I don't care about that.
It was the whole Anakin was divinely conceived by the Force thing. Was one of these things that was added super late and was never interesting to me at all.
Yeah,
and like you said, is not even original. It's just like, what if Anakin was Jesus? And you're like, I don't know. I guess sure. I mean, does anything else about it like does it matter that he like nothing? So who cares? And I don't care. Doesn't matter. The reason episode 3 was bad is because it's a bad episode of television, not because not because of any of the things people said about it. It's actually just pretty boring and has a lot of really bad acting, like just unbearable. And I hate to do this, but a lot of it is because it's an episode, very minor spoiler. It's an episode that rides on child actors pretty heavily, and it is not great. It's not the best. Not the best.
I think there's this thing that happens with this that I think is perhaps worth talking about because I'm experiencing something similar to this with The Boys, which season 4 is out right now. I think we're 5 episodes in or so, where this thing happens where like people are not liking stuff for really stupid reasons. Like getting mad about Anakin's origin story as a reason not to like something is a stupid reason not to like it. And I also think being mad at The Boys for clearly being a very, very, very thinly veiled metaphor of modern politics, like it always has been that, being mad at it because you figured that out in this season is a stupid reason to not like that show either. But like, just because those are stupid reasons to not like the shows doesn't mean that the shows aren't also bad. Like this is like, I think Boys season 4, I've watched the first 4 episodes. So I'm like right at the same spot you are with Acoloyte. I'm not liking it as much this season. And I just think it's because like, I just don't think it's as sharply written. I don't think its critiques and its metaphor and all these things are really clicking. Like it's just become just some of the like the most obvious low hanging fruit of like, haha, isn't Majori Taylor Greene ridiculous? Here's a superhero that's just her. Get it? Do you get it? And like, I don't like her. She sucks. But like, do you have anything to say about that, or are you just like poking fun at it? Like, it's frustrating, and also it's a show where the only interesting character anymore is Homelander.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is just Anthony Starr, the actor who's performing him, has always been like the best actor on the show. Period. Like he's just the way he plays this character is always awesome and terrifying and fascinating all at the same time. And so we've got there. We're just cutting between so many characters, and the only one I care about is him. But like, it's still like I feel like there's this very real and understandable reason to defend the bad stuff when stupid people are hating it for stupid reasons. Like I get it, but also we can like say it's bad too still though.
I just want to go back to a world where I didn't know what other people thought about the things that I watched, you know? It's like,
I know this is another Scott get off Twitter moment. I get it. It's not even Twitter though. It's like it's all over the place. Like it's I open up YouTube and I see it. It's just like
it comes.
I hear people talking about it. Like I heard people at work talking about the Acoloyte today.
Yeah, it's genuinely hard to avoid.
What's going on?
Yeah, it used to be like you just watch an episode of the X-Files or whatever, and that's it. That's the experience. And I think we should try to get back to that somehow. I don't exactly know how. Ironic that we're doing this on a podcast where we discuss media, but I like to think that we're not going for the angle of just like, let's be extremely hyperbolic about how something bad and was like imply that it's like undermining our country that they made a bad episode of television.
The woke mafia is destroying Star Wars and the boys.
It's a weird thing because like I haven't watched any of the new season of The Boys, and I think part of the reason for that is actually that I felt like the end of the last season was the perfect ending for the show, basically. In fact, I watched almost that whole season thinking that was going to be the last season for some reason, like a wire crossed in my brain, and I believed season 3 was going to be the last episode of The Boys. And then when the final episode wrapped up, I was like, wait, they had the perfect opportunity, right? Like right in this episode, if like two things had happened differently, we could have ended the whole show. Like it could have been resolved. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to, it's like when the airplane comes in for a landing and doesn't quite hit the window correctly and has to power up and you're going to go around the pattern one more time. And you're like, okay, so season 4 is we're going to go around the pattern one more time, I guess. So it doesn't surprise me at all to hear that it's become kind of boring and like obvious, because it's like, you did all this already. You literally did the thing you were trying to do, you did it, and now you're just doing it again. So
did you know, Matt, that corporations are bad and that they've infested our politics, and these are all things like that was the show from the whole ultimately, I think the things that I've always loved about the show is it was often very funny and gross and irreverent in a way that was entertaining and fun. And it's not that it's not that anymore. It's just like that can't carry you through 40 hours of television. Like eventually you're just gonna be like, like I get it. The guy shrunk down and then went into someone's butt. That's and then he accidentally sneezed and got big and like that's funny. I laughed at that. I enjoyed it. But like that can only carry you so far. And I'm wondering if we're gonna keep making episodes of the show. Are we gonna ever say something about what all this ultimately what our point of view on this besides it's bad. This is bad. Like it's a superhero show that is doing the metaphor of like what like superheroes were real in real life. What would they do? Well, they would be immediately monopolized and everything is fake and constructed and they're not good people. Like thousands of stories have done this exact same thing. Worm has done this exact same thing, but it eventually became about something where I can't figure what this is supposed to be about at this point, other than corporation bad, government bad.
So
I don't know.
So, like I said, I haven't watched any of the new season, but I always felt like originally the story of The Boys was supposed to be the struggle for the soul of Huey, who is this human, and he is a sort of audience surrogate. Helps that he's played by, you know, a very relatable kind of seeming guy, and and his character choices are like the morality play of the show. But then
Yeah.
at a certain point toward the, this is kind of part of what I mean when I say they had the perfect opportunity to end the show last season, because I was like, okay, this is the point where this character needs to make the decision that defines who he is and what we were actually saying with this show.
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt like an incredible wasted opportunity. And then it just kind of passed the buck and was like, well, tune in next time. And I'm like, oh, so you don't know, like, you don't, like, we don't know. Like I've actually lost investment in the show, specifically because I felt like I lost faith that they actually were going to take, you know, have something interesting to say with this character and the choices he was going to make. It could break either way, but it has to come down somewhere, you know?
Yeah. Do you want some mild spoilers for season 4? Do you care?
Sure. We'll have to warn people, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, we just did that.
We did.
Huey's arc so far in season 4 is his father has a stroke and is in a coma, and his mom shows up again.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a complicated relationship with his mom, who walked out on them when he was a kid. And it's like, it's not like that's not interesting stuff, but it's like that's happening in a show where Homelander is just murdering people willy-nilly. It's just like it's almost incongruous in the overall like arc of the, like, what are we doing is my question there. It's like, it doesn't feel like this belongs in the show. I agree with you, the soul of Huey. I think there's opportunities in this to maybe tie it back into our overarching like soul of Huey thing, but I agree, the show has, as these shows grow and expand and introduce more characters, and then we care about those characters, so we want to explore those characters a little bit more, it just gets wider and wider and wider, and we lose the central focus of it. And like, because Huey's arc right now is helping his mom or helping his dad and fighting with his mom, he's almost always just removed from any of the superhero stuff because it has nothing to do with his journey at all. So he's just like, sorry, I got to go be with my dad. And then he just leaves and is just not there. I'm like, oh, okay. Sure. Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, it's not, I feel like I'm more negative about the season than I want it to be. Like, it's fine. I'm still watching it. I want to see where it goes. I also find Anthony Starr just incredibly captivating as Homelander. Like, every scene he's in is just good. Every single one.
Yeah.
And that's what's helped pulling me through. But yeah, I just like, the show is not bad because it's making fun of the right, I guess. That's not why the show is bad. Like, the stupid people that are like, oh, the show's so woke now. We're like, what have you been watching the show? Yeah. But like, that doesn't mean you can't call it bad still. You don't have to defend a bad show just because dumb people aren't liking it.
Yeah, I mean, shows should end, I think, is a comment we've made before.
They have announced that season 5 next season will be the last season of this show. But they already have one spinoff, and then I don't know. They're probably going to do more, but
yeah, I don't know, man. I might give it a chance because I have enjoyed The Boys. I've enjoyed the first 3 seasons of The Boys.
I would give it a chance. Yeah.
It felt very, the ending of the last season felt very weird. Felt like a missed opportunity for concluding some things and wrapping some things up, and instead it just decided to like have all of the characters take a step away from what seemed like a moment to make a really cool and character defining decision. Mm-hmm. It would be like if at the end of the final episode of Breaking Bad, everybody just kind of like runs away, and then we just have another season of Breaking Bad. You know, it's like, that was when that you, damn it, you know.
Hey, that reminds me of House of the Dragon season 2, which is, I know you haven't watched season 1 at all. Don't.
I won't. I have like no desire to at all. I don't even think I finished watching the first season, actually. I literally don't know.
Oh, I didn't know you watched any of the first season. I thought you hadn't watched it at all.
I didn't watch much of it, I think. I'm reminding myself how much I actually watched.
I don't want to get into why that's bad. DM me if you want to know why I think House of the Dragon's bad. I don't want to get
Okay.
into it here, but yeah, I wouldn't. I think it
Okay.
has similar problems to that though. But yeah, I guess I agree with you. Ultimately, I think you should watch it. But yeah, they're running out of ideas, and which is an interesting thing to say because I feel like the comic has gone on for so long. They have plenty of stuff to mine from. But I also understand that the comic's pretty awful, and the show has been like better than the comic since its inception. But my experience with The Boys has definitely been diminishing returns each season. Like each season, I've liked less than the season before it, and that remains true with season 4.
Yeah, I think that's true of me as well.
The only part I like is that. Well, no, I can't spoil. Damn it! I'll tell you after the show.
Okay.
But so should I watch more of The Acolyte, Matt? Is it worth watching?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
the first couple episodes like caught my interest because I was, like I said, I was like, oh, there's a mystery here, and at this point, I'm not really compelled by the mystery. There was like a kind of interesting cliffhanger at the end of episode 4 that made me feel like, well, I have to see how this situation resolves. But it felt cheap to me, like, because it's like, well, it's literally setting up a situation where you're just like, I'm not satisfied. Like I'm dramatically and yeah, I'm just unsatisfied. So I'll probably watch the 5th episode.
I've heard the 5th episode contains the best lightsaber fight since Duel of the Fates in it, which is the most exhausting sentence of all time.
Okay, I mean, I think we all thought that was a really cool lightsaber fight, but
yeah, I was in 7th grade. I did,
but I don't know, man.
And then I grew up.
Yeah, you can only push that button so many times before it gets old.
And maybe it is really cool. I don't know. I'm an old, crotchety, grumpy person that occasionally sees someone share the made up new version of A New Hope with a badass lightsaber battle between Vader and Obi-Wan, and I'm just like, go away, away.
Right.
Stop caring about Star Wars. Everyone, all people.
I admit I have a complicated relationship with this. Did we never do our episode about Disneyland that we said we were going to do?
Oh, fuck. You're right. We didn't do that.
I thought
we were gone for so long. We completely forgot about it.
I think we were going to do that this week, and then we both forgot we said that, and then we just did Mother instead. Until this exact moment, we literally forgot. So maybe we'll do that next week.
Now. Yeah.
No, it's not. We can still do it. We can still do Disneyland. Next week, maybe.
Sure.
We'll talk about it. The point of bringing that up was like, I can admit that I have a complicated and weird relationship with Star Wars, and I was confronted by this when I went to Disneyland. I'll just give a little teaser here because I spent so much time in the Disneyland Star Wars area. And I was like, yeah, I love this shit. There's the Millennium Falcon over there. I'm standing a few feet away from Chewbacca. It's, as far as my stupid brain is concerned, actually Chewbacca. Oh, look, that's R2D2, actually R2D2 rolling around. And it's delightful. And I feel like a child again. And at the same time, I'm obviously not a child, and I roll my eyes the same as you when somebody sends the episode 4 Obi-Wan versus Vader fight where elderly Obi-Wan is doing backflips, and it's extremely cringe and stupid. But like, then at the same time, I can admit, between you and me, that like when Luke shows up at the end of that Mandalorian episode, I felt something. I was like, it's the X-Wing, it's the green lightsaber. Oh my god! And part of me knows that this is like I'm being manipulated. But isn't all drama, manipulation? Yes. The real question is like, is it earned? And is there even a real answer to that question?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think you're okay. You're allowed to have complicated feelings about Star Wars. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you're not allowed to lose your fucking mind about lesbian force users that create life or whatever the fuck. Like, who cares? I just like, it's a story. They're gonna do some new interesting thing in the story, and even if it's bad because it doesn't work, like, that you just say it's bad and then just don't watch it anymore.
Yeah,
that's all you have to do.
Yeah,
that's
right.
all you. When Mandalorian season 3, when I realized that wasn't good, you know what I did? I just stopped watching it.
Yeah,
and I moved on with my life.
I do think, the public service I try to provide with this podcast is I want to help, myself through practice and others through discussion understand why you don't like things, because it seems to me a lot of the discussion of Acoloyte is basically people saying without quite realizing they're saying, like, I don't like things that are different.
Yeah.
I want the same exact thing again, except maybe with the characters have different names, but they're the same characters.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's stupid. Like, like once you realize that that's why you don't like it, like, it's not that it's lesbian space witches, it's that it's a new thing that you don't associate with Star Wars.
Yeah,
and that makes you upset.
It's easy to say it's lesbian space witches because then you can blame Disney for trying to wokeify your thing, just like that the main character is a black woman, and so we don't cast her because she's the best person for the role. No, we clearly just casted her for some blah blah blah. It's all stupid. It's all stupid. But and like, I think you're right. Like, I think these people underneath their stupid internet fueled racist hatred is like a real reason for why they don't like something. Right?
Yeah,
I believe it's there. That's just not the thing they're going to talk about, because that's not the thing that gets clicks,
right? Because it's I agree with you. It's not that they secretly like it and that it's actually secretly good. It's that they actually don't like it, but they are just choosing to yell about something that is already their pet peeve issue, and
for some reason
could just not care about this. It's an option.
The thing that made me laugh the most was the person that I heard said, "This makes The Last Jedi look good." I was like, we've come full circle.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Let's stop. Let's never talk about. I'm putting a new rule. We're done talking about Star Wars until Andor season 2 comes out,
and until Disney.
Oh fuck. Fuck. Okay, we're done complaining about people's perception of Star Wars until Andor season 2 comes out.
Right. Yes, I agree. When we talk about Disneyland, we'll just talk about Disneyland and maybe about
and your complicated relationship with Star Wars, which is fine. Fine. It's okay to have that.
Disney as a company, and we're good.
Yeah. How do we feel about Disney, Matt?
Oh, so many things.
That's a conversation for another day. But that's it for us this week. We talked about how God is destroying the world, and also about the movie Mother.
How we're being punished for our sins.
Yeah.
And also about Javier Bardem's performance.
Yeah. If you have anything to say about Mother or about The Acoloyte, or if you completely disagree with my assessment of The Boys season 4, I want to know. You can reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or on Twitter at doofmedia. Also head to the subreddit r/doofmedia and leave us a post there.
Yeah, and if you're not already subscribed to the Doofcast, please subscribe and never miss an episode. You can find us on all the major podcasting platforms.
And if you want to support us and what we do here, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. Head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge at any of the available levels for a bunch of cool bonus content. Our book club is this Friday. We're going to be talking about Shogun, and that means there's a vote on the Patreon right now to pick next month's book. If you're a member, you can head on over there and vote. And if you're not, it's a great time to do it. So you can weigh in on what book you want us to cover. Hopefully a shorter book next month.
Yeah.
Because that was a very long book.
Yes, it was. And you read it at a remarkable pace.
Well, that's only because of my own lack of preparedness and idiocy.
I know. Also, please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts. Each review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
All right, folks. Next week on the show, we're apparently talking about Star Wars again, but it'll be different this time, I promise.
Yeah, it'll be more about fun things, and I got to fly the Millennium Falcon.
I'm so
Spoiler,
jealous.
spoiler alert. I got to fly the Millennium Falcon. Me. So, you know.
We'll learn about that next week.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.